Hey, what's up, MFers? We're here today for another Tyler's tip for you guys. This time about digital things, digital gauges, digital scales, digital stuff versus analog stuff, right? So probably the number one complaint and number one piece of feedback we get about our stuff here at Morflight is that the gauge isn't reading properly. The air hub isn't reading properly. The compressor doesn't read properly on the gauge when it tells you what pressure is inside your tires or the air system that you have hooked up to the gauge. So what happens is the calibration's most likely off. 99% of the time, your calibration is just off and the device needs to be recalibrated. So let's take a spin around. Let's look at the workbench over here and I'll show you guys what's going on. All right, so here we have a few different digital gauge devices, right? We have a really nice Dwyer digital gauge, very sensitive, the sensitivity and selectivity on it is very nice. We have our normal gauges, and then we have a digital scale. Let's turn that on to get it going, and a digital caliper. So what's really neat about digital devices is they can be and typically are very accurate. Usually because of something called piezoelectricity that is especially in weight scales as well as air gauges, not so much in digital calipers, but there's a calibration thing that goes on with digital sensors. So anytime you're using a weight scale, so when we turned it on here, the scale automatically zeroed out according to the digital caliper on it. So if I remove the digital caliper, we're now looking at -2 ounces. So if we put the calipers back on, we should be back at 0, right? So, or if we take it off and zero out the scale, there we go, now we're zeroed out. We put the caliper back on, we should be at 2 ounces. So digital needs to calibrate due to digital sensors and digital things. Analog stuff typically doesn't calibrate or recalibrate very much. It's just kind of is what it is, and it's hard to recalibrate analog stuff. Really nice thing about digital is that very accurate, very sensitive, and easy to recalibrate. So same thing here on our digital calipers, right? If we zero this out, it's going to zero out according to whatever it's at right now. So now we close it, -6.8 millimeters, even though it's 0. So if we want to say that this is the starting point of where we're measuring from, we zero from here, and it goes from 0 there. Now when we open the calipers, it's hard to do one-handed. Let's just do it this way. We open the calipers, we now, hey, 35 right on. So 35 millimeters when we get them open, and 0 when we're closed because we zeroed it out at 0. Whereas if we zeroed it out, let's see, if we zero out at 27.4, zero it, now we're zeroed, and then close it, we should be at -27.4, right? So zeroing out calibrates digital devices. So we also have a nice Dwyer gauge here that reads and zeroes out, right? So you've got on, off, and 0 here. Our gauges, we decided to keep the user interface a little more simpler. So we have on, off, and units instead of a 0 calibration. So if you're ever looking at your Morflight hose kit and realize that the calibration or the numbers are off from what your vehicle TPMS is saying or what another gauge is saying, typically what's going on, we set up our gauges so that they will zero out their calibration pretty much every single time you turn them on. So what happens is if you turn on the gauge with air pressure in the system and the gauge pressurized, there's a very high chance it is going to throw off the calibration of your gauge. To reset your calibration, all you need to do is take out the batteries here. When you take out the batteries out the back of the gauge, this is hard to do with one hand, so I'm not going to do it, but take the batteries out of the back of your gauge. That'll have power off. And then what you really need to do is disconnect your gauge from any air source. Just like that. Ensure that your valve is open, so it's set to atmospheric pressure. You see here, we have a little open tag here. So open is up. With the valve open, that means everything that's coming in this nozzle is set to atmospheric pressure. And then take out the batteries on the back of your gauge, put them back in with this valve open to atmosphere, and that will force a recalibration of your digital gauge and digital sensors. Now, because we tend to go off-roading at different elevations, you could be at close to sea level one day and the next day up at 14,000 feet in Colorado, right? This is how you recalibrate for those different elevations as well. Analog gauges, you can't recalibrate for different elevations. Digital, you can. So that's how you recalibrate our digital gauges on your hose kit. So if your calibration seems like it's going off and your digital gauge is giving you a different readout than what you think it should be in your tires, recalibrate it really quick. Make sure that when you recalibrate it, it is open to atmospheric pressure and not pressurized already through an air system, and then you'll be good to go. To keep this from accidentally recalibrating in the future, all you do is when you pull it out of your bag, turn the gauge on, and then hook it up to your hose and air system. Don't hook up your air hoses to your gauge and your manifold and then turn the gauge on. Always try and turn your gauge on before you hook it up to your tires, and that'll help it maintain calibration. Fun tip, bonus tip for everybody out there. Our PSI Pro compressors have the PSI Pro technology where it automatically sets, and then you can set a desired pressure and it shuts off automatically once you reach that pressure. The way you calibrate these is you turn them on by hooking up the alligator clamps to a 12-volt battery source. And what you're going to do is before you do that, hit the purge valve here on the compressor. That will release any pressure in the compressor and make whatever's in the compressor your atmospheric pressure of whatever elevation you're at. And then hook it up to your car, your 12-volt battery source, and then your gauge will automatically be zeroed to whatever the internal pressure is on here, which you just set to be atmospheric pressure. So there you go. Digital stuff, super reliable, super accurate, super sensitive. You just have to watch the calibration on digital stuff, and that's the only downfall. No different than you would do with a digital scale or digital calipers. Go have some fun and enjoy the trails, guys.